Hola.
Hola a todos.
Bienvenidos de nuevo a Hijas de la Chicanx. Welcome back to another episode of Hijas de la Chicanx. We are currently covering our bases because we've been long gone.
We've been away.
We've been away for more than a minute. Exactly. For those of you that do not know, we both kind of went out of town, right?
We both went out of town.
I started it.
I know that you started it, and then I followed, and then I ended it with leaving out of town. We both had really busy schedules.
Yeah, we got really busy, and this is definitely a priority, but we both decided that this is a priority that we would like it to be more quality than quantity, since it's the beginning of our podcast. So due to an family emergency, I had to go to Mexico, to Zacatecas, where my family's from. And then after that, I came back. And
then you left
and
me
then I left
for Tequila,
Jalisco for a birthday trip. I was already vaccinated. That's the reason why I ended up coming back. I wasn't in Mexico the whole month. I was in Mexico technically the whole month, but I came back to get my second vaccine. So all safe and sound, todo bien. And then when I got back, Ritzy's brother graduated.
Yeah, he graduated. So I went to go visit him at his university and celebrate graduation with him.
Yeah, so congratulations.
I know.
We're so proud of you. So that's where we've been at, guys. Sorry for being MIA. We've missed everyone. We've missed being in front of each other, talking in front of a mic, and just kind of like producing and putting everything together. Luckily, our Instagram, our Twitter, everything is still running smoothly. Super excited to get back on designing things for our social media platforms and just talking to you guys about Chicanx lived experiences that we both share.
So today, for our first episode, I mean, we're gonna talk a little bit about your trip, but we're also gonna talk a little bit and about what we were doing for this amount of time that we were away. But we're gonna talk about our lived experiences as the firstborns and as firstborns and the first daughters of our families.
Yeah.
But before we do that, cuéntame, cariño.
Cuéntame. Cuéntame de tus aventuras.
Cuéntame de tus aventuras. Primeramente, gracias, ¿no? Because Christy brought me these amazing gorditas de nata.
De nata.
Que hacen en Zacatecas, que every time you go, I always ask you to bring me some because they are just like, what do you call them? Like fluffy
drops of heaven.
They're little really fluffy pillows. I feel like I'm eating a cloud. They're so good. So you brought me that.
I did. I remember the first time I introduced them to her, they were just like out of random. I had brought them for back then where we worked at, and she tried them and she was like a little hesitant, but then she fell in love with them. So luckily this time around when I was there, they were actually selling them, and I figured, I'm like, why not bring her some? And she actually shared with her mom too, right?
Yeah, I shared them with my family. I was like, here, Christy brought me these, and they're not gonna last me a long time, so I'm gonna share some with you, and they just absolutely love them.
Yeah, so that's what I brought her back. But Mexico was nice. I mean, so many things that I did out there. Like I mentioned, the first trip was going to where my dad is from, Zacatecas. Porque mi abuelita, pues desafortunadamente está un poquito mala. But thank God, she's fighting through, and I got to spend a lot of time with her. So that was nice. We have a rancho out there. We actually had a meeting. So the last day the first day that I was in Mexico was the last episode that we put out. So Yaritza and I actually had to Ritzy, and I felt
like me estabas regañando, when you're grounded and your parents.
De repente se me sale decirte Yaritza, and it's actually Ritzy.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah.
So anyways, we had a meeting, and back in the day, we've never had Wi-Fi in the ranch, and that was actually the thing I love the most about going to Mexico.
Right.
And now we have Wi-Fi, so we were having a meeting and we were FaceTiming, and I told her, I'm like, oh, do you want to see like my office for the day? Y literal, it was like in the cerro.
I was in my like home office that we've all kind of like constructed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And Christy was like in the middle of nature. There are mountains behind her. And then
All
from
around me, mejor dicho.
from far away, I could see your grandmother sitting on a
you got to
chair
see her.
underneath like a fruit tree, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, you can really tell that Zoom has really taken off because we're having like this meeting. You from your family's rancho and me from like my like constructed like home office.
Yeah. And you told me too, you were like, wow, I'm so jealous right now because you're literally in nature.
Because I could see los nopales.
Yeah, no, it's so beautiful. I love the part of Mexico that we're from. You know, we're fortunate enough to have our own ranchos, so there's literally mountains all around us. And the number one thing that I love the most about there is like the breeze, the open breeze.
Sí. El olor a tierra. I always hear that from my family. Cuando llueve y empieza a oler a tierra.
Especially Zacatecas. It's very... people call it like a desert type of deal because it never really rains. So when it rains,
it's very arid for sure.
Definitely. So yeah, I got to do that. And then like I mentioned, I took a trip to Tequila, Jalisco, where I've always dreamt of going. If you follow me on Instagram, I wrote on there that that's how I started.
You want to go fulfill your fantasy of La Gaviota.
La Gaviota. La Gaviota. Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned in the telenovela episode, Destilando Amor, that was one of my favorites growing up, and I had always wanted to experience los agaves en el campo. And luckily, thankfully, with the pandemic, vaccines rolling out, I felt comfortable enough to take a trip. And I got to experience tequila for the first time. Yeah. I told Ritzy that when I literally walked into the town, I had tears of joy. You know how when it's your birthday and your whole life just kind of like flashes before your eyes and you're like, wow, what did I do this year? But I'm not gonna lie, I mean, you guys to me are like friends, just like Ritzy is like one of my good friends. And last year was hell and back. I think for not just for me, but for many people. And I guess just stepping foot into a place that I had always dreamt of going to, and just realizing that, you know, the future is looking super bright. I was just like so happy, and I told Ritzy that I had tears of joy in my face.
Claro.
And I know, and it was just nice, you know. So I got to do that. I got to learn a lot about charros and like
because you went to see the exhibitions of the todo lo que es la charrería, no?
Sí, we did the Jose Cuervo Express. If you guys are looking to do a tequila tour, I highly recommend it. It was so good. They were so great, and we got to do so many things. And they had like drinks the whole day. They offered water all day. They had, you know, the baile folclórico. They had the mariachis. They had the tour of the hacienda. Jose Cuervo.
Right. But can you tell everybody more about lo que me enseñaste a mí, your mini lecture that day that we went out and had a picnic? I think it was the day you told me about the process of the tequila, that white tequila. Remember
los cuatro tequilas.
Sí, el tequila blanco.
Yeah, so there's actually, it's 3 types of tequilas, and then you can say that there's like a 4th, but there's tequila blanco, tequila reposado, tequila añejo.
El tequila cristalino, ¿no?
I love that you remember that.
Yeah.
Because guys, I became fan of tequila cristalino, and if you were one of the friends that went with me, that was like all they were splurging. But yeah, I was just telling her how they literally taught us the moment that, you know, they put the roots, and then how it becomes what it becomes, and then from there the types of tequilas that come out of it. So tequila blanco is actually the most recent agave that, you know, what do they call the piñas de agave? That's what they call them. It's not actually a pineapple, but it's like the piña de agave. Right. And it's tequila blanco. And that one, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's literally from 0 to 6 months. And that's how they make the tequila. So that's like the newest one. Right. And then there's reposado, which is 6 to a year.
I feel like that's what I drink the most. No,
or
reposado.
Reposado, yeah, that's the second. And that's a little bit longer time. And it starts having like a little bit of color to it. And then the last one is añejo, which is like the oldest tequila that there is. And that is the most aged one. And that one, you'll notice that it's a little bit more of like darker color. Yeah. And then there's cristalino that many don't know about. I guess it's starting to like make its wave. But cristalino, yeah, like, I mean, it's one of those tequilas que I think only, I don't know who exactly would order it, but the process of cristalino is that it's actually añejo, but they remove the color of it. Right, you told me, so the cloudy, like blanco. So that's what they gave me when we went to have dinner that night before my birthday. And I fell in love with it. It was super smooth because it's añejo, but it's still super crystal clear. And that's what I had the rest of the trip. So if you ever want to like surprise me with anything, make me happy, buy me cristalino. Buy me cristalino. So
not a bottle of wine. Please buy me a bottle of tequila cristalino.
Tequila, sí. Pero no, siendo de Zacatecas, my family, we grew up drinking mezcal. So for me, like tequila, not gonna lie, is like water. So it was really cool to experience, you know, how tequila is made and, you know, all the things that circle around it. It was such an awesome experience. I didn't realize I love mariachi as much as I did when I was on that trip.
And you were singing, and
oh my God, they played every Luis Miguel song you could think of, and that is my favorite artist.
Pero con mariachi, ¿no?
Con mariachi, sí. Pero
I was living vicariously through you, for sure. Yeah,
she couldn't join me, but there's exciting reasons why she couldn't join me.
I did not join you, not because I should have been there, right? Because I'm your friend, you're one of your bestest friends, but I couldn't go with Christy because I ended up getting a research project in Puebla. Yay! And I'm so excited for it. And Christy said that she's planning on visiting me, not during the research, but like after. Course, yeah. And I'm really excited for that.
That's what I told Yaritza when I found out about the Puebla trip. I told her, I'm like, well, once you're done and you want to celebrate your accomplishment, I'll totally be there. Of course, if everything keeps going, you know, moving forward with this pandemic. Yeah,
for sure. So tell me, cariño, what have you been watching on TV? What have you been doing?
What have I been
Anything?
Watching? The thing that I've been watching on TV right now, well, reruns when I have a chance. I always go back to shows. I've been watching New Girl. I don't know if you've ever watched it.
I watched the whole thing. I mean, I haven't
watched it so many times.
I haven't gone into the phase of rewatching it. In fact, I don't think I've really ever rewatched a show save for maybe like Gilmore Girls, because I would have it in the background, and Friends.
Oh, really? Yeah, those are the two ones that I always watch. But right now I'm currently watching New Girl. It's so funny, and I also love to watch. I think I rewatch the shows because as you get older, you start noticing things that you wouldn't notice when you were younger. And right now, New Girl, they're in that age of being like 29 to 31.
That transition into your 30s.
Yeah, and that's my age range right now. So I'm like, oh, you know, it's relatable. But that's what I've been watching. Music. I'm always all over the place when it comes to music. I've been boxing a lot.
Yeah, you have.
I've been boxing a lot. I mean, before I left to Mexico, I had just got back into boxing, and once again, now that I'm back, I've been going 3 weeks as of now, every freaking day. And I was just telling Eddie, I'm like, I'm so tired, but I'm also like super energized.
Because we're recording earlier than usual today.
We are recording earlier than usual. I went to the gym this morning at 8 a.m. But I feel amazing. I feel so great and strong, and that's what I've been doing.
I feel great because my coffee, like all my caffeine hasn't run out of my body. So I feel great, but like I feel like as soon as it starts running out, I'm going to feel tired.
You'll be dead. Yeah.
While we were separated.
Okay. You're gonna tell me something that they don't know and I don't know.
Me pasó esto. No. I've been watching a lot of I've been watching Pose, which is this really great show on Netflix. You have to watch it. It's so good. I've been watching Pose, and I would explain it to you, but like honestly, go on Netflix and like watch it, or YouTube, like the trailer for it. The documentary Uncoded Bias, which I think your brother would really like. You really have to watch it. It's a lot about, it was crazy. It's a lot about how like a lot of facial recognition technology, or like the algorithm has like discrimination like entrenched into it. And there's a lot of like cool women, like a lot of women power, women empowerment, but But so anyhow,
Nice.
aside from the female empowerment, there's a lot of like engineers working to, and MIT people, really young people trying to kind of like unravel and like understand this whole discrimination with facial recognition.
Oh yeah, my
But
brother
also
would like that.
he would love it because
He's
I
gonna be an
saw what he
engineer.
concocted
Yeah.
in the basement. Her brother has like this incredible like robot thing, and so
He's gonna be an engineer. For those of you that don't know
Yeah.
my brother,
I'm like over here.
I know he's gonna be an engineer. But yeah, that's awesome.
See, and I've been really obsessed with watching, like, when I just need to relax and unwind. And your sister would probably like it. A lot of Japanese food videos, and
Oh,
I'll just
really?
sit down and unplug my brain.
Uh-huh.
Be like, switch it off, and I'll watch like people who go to Japan and they go to the market and they try different like street food stuffs, and I'll live through them because I'll see all
I
like
think I've
the
seen
fried
that
little
before.
food.
I think
Yeah.
I've watched that before. Yeah.
So I've been watching that.
It's always good to watch things that like just turn
Yeah.
your brain off. And also, for the first time in a long time, I'm going to be watching a novela again.
What novela?
It's called it's Café con Aroma de Mujer.
Café con aroma de mujer. Who comes up
Sí.
with these titles
Okay,
for the
so
novelas? though?
the reason why I'm watching this novela is because my husband is in it, William Levy.
Ay,
Of course.
cariño. Tu esposa y el de mil otras.
I know. No, so they're actually doing what Destilan. Okay, so back in the day, there was this novela called Café con Aroma de Mujer, and it's actually from Colombia.
Ah, okay.
So they remade that novela, and then they made Destilando Amor. So
Como-
the same concept, but it was Destilando Amor with tequila. And that's the novela I fell in love with growing up, and that's the reason why I went
And
to
is
Tequila
this one's
Jalisco.
about coffee
so
production?
this one is actually like a reboot of the original, but this one has William Levy in it with the whole Colombian cast. Or not, I don't know if the cast is Colombian, but everybody, it's a Colombian novela now.
Okay.
And it's going to come out in Telemundo. So
wait, pause. Is this instead of it being like Destilando Amor y el proceso del tequila,
es el proceso
del café,
de
coffee production?
Porque el original, the original one was about coffee. So what they did is that they're rebooting the café one, not the tequila one, because the tequila one was just the perfect the way it was.
Sí.
So yeah, William Levy is starting in a novela again. Christy is going to watch a novela again. I'm watching it with Yvette, and Yvette, she's my best friend. Her and I used to watch novelas back in the day, and we're doing it now in our late 20s once again. So
I just remember like when I was younger, I would see like what is it, like the artwork for novelas with him and Maite Peroni, but I never really watched one.
it's because he was the novela guy for a long time. Obviously there was many novelas, many different hunks, I guess you could call them, but you know how there's always that one that stands out, like
Televisa.
Fernando Colunga,
Sí,
like
sí, sí.
all these different guys, and he was that like
Televisa goes through that phase of
they
like,
really go through that like picture perfect boy.
for sure. It doesn't surprise me though. Like Televisa sees like a gorgeous white hunk that can speak Spanish, immediately
Of course.
you're gonna be the protagonist for a novela.
Of course. So enough about my love for William Levy. Now let's dig into today's topic, refreshing everyone's mind if we lost you. It's being the oldest sibling, being the lucky firstborn, and all the responsibilities that come with being the
The
firstborn
pros and cons of
in a
being...
Mexican-American household.
Well, cariño, ¿qué te puedo decir? I don't know. I think that being the firstborn and being the first daughter, like I'm really, really grateful for it, and I think I'm sure that my identity like would be different if I hadn't been the firstborn daughter. But I often think of being the firstborn, like when you're making pancakes and you have your batter. I mean, this happens to me all the time when I make pancakes. Like, I can cook
I know
well,
exactly what
but
you're
with
about to say.
pancakes, it's always an experiment. And I'm sure
That's a great way to say it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's because it's like baking, but like a much simplified baking process, because you're not putting anything in the oven, so you're not necessarily baking it. But anyhow, you have the batter, and then you're about to put it on the griddle or the pan or however you make pancakes. And the first pancake, el primer panqueque, nunca te va a salir como el resto.
Exactamente.
It's a little
Practice
good.
makes perfect.
It's a little good. It's a little burnt, but it's good enough to eat. And that's how I think about being the firstborn. You're the first pancake that hits that griddle.
True.
And you're good in the center, but like you're burnt around the edges.
What is that? Oh. You really went in with that metaphor. It's good in the center, but it's burned all around. You just described my life.
Girl, you put a little bit of honey to mask it, to make it better.
Oh my god, I needed that laugh. What a great way to break the ice for this one. Oh my god. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
If you I don't know where that came from, but you described it so perfectly.
I was thinking about it one day. Like, you know those moments where you've got nothing going on, so you're just sitting in your bedroom or in the living room? I was like, you know what? Being the firstborn, I'm the first freaking pancake. And my siblings are the other pancakes that come out fine, and they're not so burnt.
Yeah.
In fact, some of them aren't even burnt around the edges.
Aww.
But
it's also like a blessing in disguise.
Claro.
I strongly believe that.
Sí. At least for us in our lived experiences, it has been, yeah, a blessing in disguise, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's still, though, I think that you're the first person or the first sibling that is going to break a lot of, like you're going to influence your other siblings' values and tastes as well as, but like you have to go and explore and decide like what you like and don't like. I think like I can see like my younger siblings, and a lot of the times I'll say like I'll introduce them to something, and like for us, like we do the introducing like to a band or to an artist or to a show or whatever.
Of course.
I think the older they get, they'll contribute to that too, but like I always think it's rough. It's amazing because I mean, I think that there's like a lot of disagreement in psychology of like birth order, like if it's significant or how it affects like siblings. But I do think that at least in my experience, being the firstborn, I think made me like and I don't even want to more conscious of what I liked and didn't like.
Of course.
And more self-aware.
Because you didn't realize that you were the first. I mean, obviously you knew you were the firstborn, but there was a point in your life where you were the only child.
Yeah.
Your parents, it was their first time as well. It was on your side and on their side, it's the beginning to it all. So no one's expecting for it to be perfect. Society doesn't expect for it to be perfect because everyone gives that encouraging hand when they're having their first child. But also you growing up, I also believe that you grow up and you're the only child for a while, right? Maybe your parents waited 3 years, 5 years. In my case, they waited 1 year. And, you know.
Girl, say you were not an only child for that long. If they waited 1 year, I don't even think you were self-aware.
My sister and I were like Irish twins, actually. We're so close in age. But no, you I think from a really young age, you start having this mentality of being the first one.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, the one behind you is going to mimic it.
Yeah, until they become self-aware themselves and conscious.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's why for me, obviously I'm the oldest, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I feel like I am the oldest because my sister and I are so close in age that sometimes she takes that role of being like the oldest. But I believe that both on the child's end and the parents' end, it's like a beginning to what's to come. And like you said, I mean, we're good in the middle, but on the outside we're all burnt. And and there are definitely, you know, things that could be bettered. But I think from a Mexican American household, I feel like in my household at least, it's a very compassionate thing where, you know, you're growing up and your parents are lending you a hand to try to like figure out life. And the people behind me, which is my brother and my sister, in other people's cases, it's not, maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
because it's
but
different for every
it is different
household.
for every household. But I mean, I actually find it as a like a beautiful thing that I get to be the first one that kind of sets the path, but it's also like, oh crap, if I don't do it right, are they going to mess it up as well?
Yeah.
You know, because there's many instances in my life where I felt like I was supposed to set the right example, and I think I tried for most of my life to set the right example. So sometimes I feel like I have to be the perfect child because I am the firstborn. I'm the one that will be setting the example, and I can give you an example of that right now. I grew up going to Catholic school, and then from there I went to a private high school, which was primarily like more white dominant than it was Latino dominant. But I grew up in the house where my dad mostly spoke Spanish, so I felt like it was my responsibility to keep that tradition of speaking Spanish alive. So I made sure at a really young age in high school to continue to speak Spanish, because I didn't want my dad to feel like, you know, he couldn't speak around me and be comfortable. But I also wanted my brother and my sister to understand that having Spanish in our life was a very important instrument, because my dad taught us that it was good to have both English and Spanish. So that's one example of me like being the oldest child, making sure that I passed down to them that it was important to have Spanish in our lives, not only English.
That's a really interesting, fascinating, and important point that you make, because I do think that, like, I was thinking about my own family dynamic and my own like family life, and I've always thought of it that way too, where like as the oldest one, you in a way, I don't know if like consciously, you, because I don't want to say that unconsciously, but you become like a language keeper, like the language keeper, and I think I've noticed, at least even with the rest of my like immediate family, that the youngest child doesn't necessarily like retain that obligation of being the language keeper. I'm sure that, again, that it's different for every family household, but at least from my lived experience and from what I've noticed with my immediate family, I've seen that. For me, I felt it this like immense responsibility of learning Spanish and making sure that I was proficient in it. And because I also went to Catholic school, and I think it was my Catholic school is rough, by the way, just a side note.
Oh, really?
It is rough. Uniforms, nunca jamás en mi vida otra vez.
I felt like in some way it was good, though.
In some ways, where like you don't have to pick out your outfit when you're dead at 5 a.m. But also like in summertime, that clothing, oof, it is the worst.
I love that we both went to Catholic school, so we understand.
Yeah, it was rough. I don't think I'd do it again. But so anyhow, I do think that, my high school, it was like an obligation to take Spanish courses. And then when I went to do my bachelor's, I made sure to take like a Latin American studies and Spanish.
Yeah, because you felt like classes. You needed to.
Absolutely. And nobody was telling me like you have to, but I felt it. And
exactly. No one ever told
nobody's
you
telling
have
you.
To, but these are expectations that you think, oh my God, I have to make this happen. If
out of
I
this
don't.
sense of firstborn responsibility.
Of course.
Yeah.
I relate to that 100%. I always feel like it was an unspoken thing, but I always felt like I had some kind of responsibility. And even growing up as well, like I mentioned, being the perfect child, nobody is perfect, but I also felt like I always had to somehow follow the rules to make sure that my parents' sacrifices were worth it, because I was the first one.
I think definitely as the firstborn, and sometimes as first generation in this country, there's always that like intrinsic sense of responsibility and feeling it because of your parents' sacrifice. So it's interesting that you're also thinking about that too.
Oh, of course. And they're not telling you,
no,
we sacrifice so much for you.
You feel it as a child.
You really, really feel it. And as the oldest one, you kind of try to get to tell your siblings, hey, ponte las pilas, pero I think we feel that as the oldest child, there are things that are not spoken of, but we kind of hold this responsibility. Another point in my life that I feel like is a big deal that I've always felt some sort of responsibility for, and I was scared that my choosing a different lifestyle would rub off on my siblings was school. Because I ended up, not doing a 4-year university. I did go to, my first 2 years of college, but then I changed up the game and I went to a trade school. Yeah. And I did that for myself because I knew that I really wanted to work in music. Right. And I felt like being in a 4-year university, sitting there, like reading a book was not going to teach me.
Entire life.
It is. And we're so different in that aspect, and I think that's really cool too, but you went the whole way, all the way.
Hasta PhD.
Exactamente. You went the whole way, and I decided that my life wasn't going to take that course, and I didn't do it because I was trying to rebel. I just felt that for the lifestyle that I wanted or what I wanted to accomplish in my life, that's what I had to do. But I also had to make sure that as the oldest child that my brother and my sister both understood that was not how they had to do their life. They had to figure it out themselves. There's different points in your life where you start, dissecting like, oh my God, what exactly is going to happen if I were to make this change. So I think my life would be different if I wasn't the oldest child. Yeah. But I'm also thankful for it because I grew as a person, and I'm sure that through my learnings they grew as well.
Yeah, right.
Because you have siblings as well too, right?
Absolutely. I do. But you know what? And obviously siblings are a salient part of family life. But I was thinking about that, how you said like, selecting like this specific lifestyle that might contradict the lifestyle that perhaps like your parents might have expected, which, I think
of course they imagined for you.
And I think the parents also grow in the sense of, they have to like select and like, whatever lifestyle they want, at a certain point in life. But I was thinking about how, paradoxical it can be where like you're rebellious, but also like the responsible one. Rebellious in the sense that you are perhaps not necessarily fulfilling what your parents had imagined, perhaps. And then responsible in the sense of I'm the firstborn, and I'm self-aware and like have to do things this way and et cetera, but like how paradoxical it can be, because you're like either like rebellious or responsible. Or I think for me at least it was both of them kind of at the same time coming together and like interweaving like but so I think about that paradox. But I also think that looking at my younger siblings, I remember, how you said, like, I'm really happy that because your siblings have selected very different, like, each one of them has a particular passion.
Of course.
And same goes with my brother. I have a particular, like, interest in anthropology and art history and archaeology and, and thinking about those things critically. And he's like all about like animal sciences. And then my little sister is like extremely creative, and your sister's a chef, and your brother's an engineer.
It's cool that you set the example, but then everyone starts molding into their own person, which is great.
They do.
Imagine if it was a copy of a copy of a copy.
No, and I remember when I was still a teenager and my brother was entering, his teenage phase, or his teenage years, sorry. I remember telling him, do things differently. Don't go to the same high school that I did. If you want to go to a completely different high school, do it. And he did. And he wound up going to a different high school because he felt like the high school that I was going to wasn't challenging him academically. Like he wanted, so I was like, do it, don't follow it in. Don't go down the same road that I did when you can explore others, right? That when there are many, many options. So I've seen that with your family dynamic, and I've seen that with mine, which is amazing.
Which is really cool, yeah. And I also think that being the oldest, I feel the sense of protection over my siblings because it is really nice to know that you went through some hard parts in your life and that they can run to you.
See.
Or sometimes they don't even ask you, but you just feel the need to
Right.
be like, hey, just a heads up, this is what happened to me. It's not necessarily what you have to change in your book, but just giving you a heads up that this is coming, or this might happen.
Yeah.
And you can see a sense of relief in their face, like, oh my God, thank you, you know? And it's really cool to be able to do that and give them some sense of relief to know that it's going to be okay. And if they have to, they can depend on you, and they kind of get a break at life because you are the oldest. No, but it's really nice to be like the one that can kind of provide for them next to your parents.
Right.
Because you get to a certain age where you don't, maybe you always look for mommy and daddy, but then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I need to be a grown up. And then luckily they have their oldest brother or sister to depend on.
Yeah, I do think that a big role in my life has been somebody that my siblings can turn to. So I can definitely see what you're talking about. It's beautiful. And it has its pros and it has its cons. You know, as the firstborn, your place in the family structure will always be this sense of, again, of like self-awareness and like contesting power, you know, sometimes within your own family, or like with your parents, or if there's like a patriarchal infrastructure at home. And then at the same time, you're also the person who positively, hopefully in most cases, right, or fortunately or unfortunately in some cases, that's not always the scenario, but I do think that, you know, it's an immense but an incredible opportunity to be somebody that your siblings can turn to, that you can positively kind of lead your siblings into forming and finding their own identity as they do that away from you as well.
Yeah, and you also have to, I mean, we're both the oldest child in our families, but maybe you're not the oldest, maybe you're the middle child, maybe you're the youngest child.
You can go hug your older sibling now.
Seriously.
If you have like a good relationship with them, you can go hug them today.
And just make sure that they know that you appreciate everything they have put themselves through before you. Like in the poetry.
Snap your fingers,
Snap
sister.
your fingers. No, but I mean, if we're being truthful and honest, as both oldest siblings in our family, and I can say this, you know, blindly, everybody that I know that has been the oldest child in their family, they have gone through some crap before you probably have gone through some crap. And they really take the bullet for the team. So just make sure that you really do appreciate your oldest sibling. Yeah. Because they really take the bullet for everyone.
I'm thinking about that. I don't know why the greeting card company didn't come up with the oldest sibling day.
That's true.
Capitalism hasn't like reached its fingers into...
I think it's time for La Chicanx to make the first card. No, but I mean, this topic is definitely complex. Yeah. There are many ways that we can talk about how the oldest sibling role has really played a big part of our lives. But I think that's also something that, just like the episodes before, they will be coming into play through the next episode.
Right. And through, I think, like even multiple seasons, these topics will probably come to the surface again.
Yeah, it's just like us shedding light on the topic. But then later on, when we talk about, you know,
leaving an open door for...
Yeah, we always say that, but it's really true, because just life says Chicanx, we have experienced that, how being the oldest child has played a role in our lives, not only through, you know, our career paths, but also in our personal lives. And that will come into play in the next episodes. We both will talk about reasons why we have chosen certain things in life, or how things have hit us on different levels. And I can easily say that for me, it was because I was the oldest child. I don't know about Ritzy. What do you think?
Yeah, Christy, I agree. I think that, you know, being the oldest sibling is a beautiful, complicated journey. And it's wonderful that you mentioned how, you know, we're leaving the door ajar, and this is going to come up in future seasons. These topics will come up. And speaking of future seasons, our future episodes. There's some great content and creative ideas that we've been concocting.
Just because we've been on hiatus doesn't mean that we haven't talked about this.
Right. And we will be featuring an artist soon.
Like we've mentioned in the previous.
How
it's really happening in the next episodes.
It is. We had mentioned that we wanted to utilize our podcast as a platform to create community and to feature artists in practicing diverse creative mediums. And so it's happening for the next episode.
Yeah, we're super excited. We already have some emails in our inbox.
We do.
And we will be featuring them on the next episode. Closing out the season strong. We were gone, but not for too long. So I hope you didn't miss us too much. But we really are excited to tackle more topics, really dig deep into learning about us and learning about other people, hearing your stories. Thank you guys so much if you have already DM'd us, sent us messages on Facebook with how the podcast has sparked an interest in your life and made you think or wonder about certain things that have happened
in your own life.
In your own life, exactly. So we're really looking forward to continuing to grow the podcast. So happy to be in front of each other again, talking in front of the mic. And so with that, we are done for today. And you guys can follow us if you haven't already on our social digital platforms. And you can find us at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok under the username @Hijas de la Chicanx podcast. I'll spell that out for you. It's HIJASDLCHICANX podcast. And you can listen to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Music. So with that, we are closing the day. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. Looking forward to talking to you guys next week. Ritzy, close it off.
Goodbye, everybody. And remember that your voice matters.